far and away the most views I've ever gotten on one of these James Talks DVDs videos is when I reviewed the 2000 Three Stooges biopic movie. I also reviewed the complete Three Stooges short film collection, which also got some of the highest views I've ever gotten. Something about when I talk Three Stooges makes people sit up and notice. So we're going to talk about something weird today. Today we're going to talk about the 2012 Three Stooges remake? Reboot? Reimagining? I don't know. I don't know what to call it. You could almost call it just a new Three Stooges thing. I don't know what we would call this. You might recognize this. This contains the 2000 biopic, as well as a bunch of other Three Stooges shorts, feature films, and the 2012 movie. The 2012 movie is something that I first heard about long before it was made. And it had the weirdest cast. That, I mean, the idea of remaking Three Stooges was ridiculous and destined to fail. But the cast was so bizarre that I was like, I have to see this fucking movie. This is going to be amazing. It was supposed to be Benicio del Toro as Mo, Sean Penn as Larry, and Jim Carrey gaining a bunch of weight to play Curly. The Farrelly brothers were going to direct. It was going to be this big event movie. And that never happened. Jim Carrey dropped out because he didn't want to gain the weight. He started to do it. He said, this doesn't feel healthy to me. I'm not gonna do this. I guess it was an all or nothing package and the other two dropped out. I don't know what that movie would have been like, but I have a feeling, like, I keep imagining it would have been like the Nicolas Cage Superman movie. It would have been something that, would it have been awful? Probably, but I kind of wish it existed because it would have been an interesting kind of awful. Instead, what we got was, so, you know, and I don't want to call them no-name actors because, well, for the most part, they're not. We got Sean Hayes. It was the biggest name among the Stooges, playing Larry. Will Sasso playing Curly, and Chris, who the fuck knows how to pronounce his name, as Mo. They are fine. I mean, they do a good job. You get the feeling you're watching the Stooges. But that's the problem. You're not watching the Stooges. That's why this wasn't ever going to really work. You know, you can't just make a new Three Stooges thing because the Three Stooges were those guys. You know what I mean? It's not like even Ghostbusters, and I, like many people, was not a fan of what was done to Ghostbusters in 2016. But Ghostbusters, while it is synonymous with those actors are not literally the Ghostbusters. You know what I mean? Like, Bill Murray isn't Peter Venkman, but Mo Howard is Mo. You can't just have somebody else play Mo. It'd be like somebody else playing Groucho, somebody else playing Abbott and Costello, or W.C. Fields, or Charlie Chaplin. You can't just stick a mustache on somebody and say, and be like, it's a new Charlie Chaplin movie. No, it's not. It's a little bit like, and I don't even know if they're doing this anymore. I hope they're not, but I remember a couple years ago they announced that they were going to make a new James Dean movie. Like, it was going to be like face swap technology, and they were going to have James Dean was going to be the star. And it's like, no, James Dean isn't the star. You've got some poor actor whose face we'll never see starring in the movie. That's not James Dean. It's just a face swap. This is just three guys pretending to be Moe, Larry, and Curly. They do, like I said, they do good impressions, but that's all they're doing is impressions. The plot goes to show why these things were always best kept short. You know, the plot is basically, it's a lot like the video game, actually, from the Nintendo game. But it follows a kind of a 1930s, 40s Three Stooges setup. They're orphans. The orphanage that they live in is going to be shut down. They want to get the money to keep it open. I mean, it's a really standard Three Stooges plot. It just gets dragged out so thin. And they mix it up. I mean, they kind of break it up into three short films that are connected by this plot. But still, it's by the time you get to the end of the movie, you're just ready for it to be done. Now, I know I'm kind of ragging on this movie. I'm ragging on it because it shouldn't exist. But it does exist. So what do I think of the movie that actually does exist? It's okay. It's all right. It actually managed to get a few chuckles out of me. The Farrelly brothers clearly loved the Three Stooges. They wanted to make something as close to what a Three Stooges feature film would have been, starring those guys. They wanted it to be those guys. They didn't want Chris, Sean, and Will to do their own thing. They wanted them to do what the Howards and Fine team did. That's what they wanted, and that's what they got. And in that way, could you say it's admirable? Maybe? I don't know. I don't know if you would call it admirable. If you would say that, well, they loved the Three Stooges so much, they wanted to bring them back. Sometimes there are things you just got to let go of. They're not coming back. You'll never see them again. Some people might say that's what makes life beautiful, is, you know, everything is temporary. Everything is finite. And Three Stooges are done. They're over. This was an attempt by a couple of fans to bring them back and to introduce them to a new generation, which I hate that term. I hate that term so much. You know, we got to introduce them to a new generation. With the advent of DVD, no, you don't. Okay? Kids today, if they watch this movie and they're like, oh, this is funny, this is hilarious, they're not going to go back and watch the old shorts and think the same thing. Because the old shorts aren't going to have Jersey Shore and piss jokes in them. And they're going to go, this is black and white and boring and, you know, whatever. I just don't see anybody getting into the Three Stooges after watching this movie. I don't. This movie, the people who enjoyed it at all were Three Stooges fans. And even a lot of them didn't like it because it's not really the Stooges. It's a paradox. It's just, this would have been better served being a biopic. You know, I would love to see a big screen biopic for the Three Stooges. I still think that they still don't get the respect that they deserve, do they? You know, you've got like movies like Stan and Ollie come out where comedy teams are given their due finally on the big screen in a dramatic way. But the Three Stooges are still relegated to that 2000 biopic movie. But I guess of all the comedy teams, you don't see anybody trying to redo the Marx Brothers. You know, you don't see anybody going, no, we're not going to remake Duck Soup. We're going to make a new Marx Brothers movie. Maybe Three Stooges is the only one you can really do this with. I don't know. They tried, and they got as close as anybody could get. I give them that. I wish that it had been the Jim Carrey, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro movie. That would have been bizarre. But as is, this is 2 stars. It's harmless. I don't even consider it disrespectful. They're being as respectful as they possibly can be. It's just unnecessary, though.
Other worlds.
Sort of gave myself the challenge of, okay,